My name's Chayoot, and I am the assistant wrestling coach at Bangtao Muay and MMA. So my name's Che. My last name is Cheng Supanamit, but no one actually calls me that, so it's all good. I am assistant coach for wrestling in Bangtao Muay and MMA. Since the grand opening, pretty much. It wasn't my official title at first, so when I got here, it was just to support the boys. Something special about having multiple people basically have their dreams come true at the same time. So I wanted to see to it that it, had about as much success as it could right out of the gates. Surprised about the success? No. Surprised about the growth? Yes. I didn't think it was going to grow as fast as it did, but I don't think anyone did either, especially not about 3 years in. Yeah. So very, very aggressive style. Lots of pace, lots of speed, lots of pressure. Attack from anywhere. So even if someone was attacking my position, instead of fixing the position right away, I would try to attack him back. And so you see a lot of that in some of my scrambles. I get into some really strange scrambles where usually I'll end up figuring out the position before the other person does, and then I'll end up in a better spot because of it. As far as record goes, I don't know the actual win-loss record, but I'm just a little bit short of 300 matches competed. Wow. Last time I tried to count it, I was looking at about, I think, somewhere between 275 and 300. So my goal was to get to the Olympics, qualify, do as best as I could there. And so my goal was, after qualifying for the Olympics, I would just retire and then just go into entrepreneurship completely. I had no plans to continue in combat sports at all. So this would have been when I was 26 years old, 27 because of COVID. But I fell a couple steps short of qualifying for the Olympics. Got on the national team for a little bit. That's about as far as I went. At that point, it was just figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. I made enough friends in MMA and in like competitive no-gi, BJJ, submission grappling kind of stuff. And it felt like they had a lot to benefit from me helping them out in their fight camps and stuff. So I ended up sticking around for long enough to basically make a career out of it. So my friends begged me to do it. All of my close friends were on the wrestling team for whatever reason. I was about 14 years old. And so it was kind of an interesting time just because like, as a teenager, right? You're trying to feel more capable. I feel like you're in charge of something, like got more responsibility to basically step up into the role as a man. Right, and there are not a whole lot of things that can accomplish that more than wrestling, just because you put the responsibility on you, right? So whether you win or lose, it's like it's your fault, but it's also your accomplishment, right? It's like you're not passing the ball to anybody, right? You don't have to, or you don't get to rely on a teammate to make up for your mistake if you have one, and so it's all on you, right? And that was kind of an empowering thing when I was 14. For the issues that I kind of had back then with my mental health, feeling like I was in control of my destiny was like a really, really good thing for me back then. Competitive match? Yeah, I got pinned in like 26 seconds. It was bad. Like someone threw me to my back. The referee was, so basically like when both your shoulder blades are flat on the back for 2 seconds for like high school, referee slaps the mat, blows the whistle, and it's over, right? That's the equivalent of getting knocked out, right? In Muay Thai, in boxing, and whatever, right? So I only lasted 26 seconds in my first match. Coaching style, I'll really try to meet the person where they are. So if they're prone to overthinking, I really try to simplify it for them. If they don't pay enough attention to the details, I'll tell them to slow down. But really, it's meeting them where I think they benefit the most. So I try not to put my style on anybody. I'll kind of take a look at them and see, just based on my experience of like where people find success, I'll try to give them what they need that's, basically backed by numbers, backed by other people's success. But I try to let them grow into their own. There've been quite a lot. So I love those moments where I'm involved in a fight camp and I show them something. Sometimes it's takedown defense, for example, if they come from a striking background. Right, so I remember one of the first camps I worked with extensively was Ali Motamed. And so Ali Motamed at the time was fighting in One Warrior series. And so I think he had 2 more fights to win to get a contract for one championship. And this would have been his second last fight. Went up against an opponent that knew how to wrestle. And so we worked a lot on takedown defense. I was the drilling partner for a lot of those things. And I believe in that fight, as we saw it, he didn't get taken down in that fight. You know, he was using the defense that Frank was coaching him on, and I was working on him to tweak and really get the fine-tune the details right on that defense. Yeah. So that was really gratifying, you know, to see someone's career trajectory just basically change because of some small details that I could contribute, you know, to the situation.
Yeah.
God, I love those guys to death, right? Like I would jump in front of a moving train for them. If they decided to open up a gym, you know, underneath some active volcano, I probably think it's a dumb idea, but I'd move there anyways, right? It's like I've got that much love for them. They've done a lot for me, you know. They've really watched my back, you know, took care of me for the past, since I've known them, so about 6 years. So they've done a lot, and a lot of these days it just feels like I want to return the favor. You know, I want to really make things right by giving back to them what they've done so much for me. I've gotten much smarter about coaching. In the beginning, you know, there were things I could do subconsciously, but I couldn't quite explain it very well. And part of coaching was figuring out how to externalize, articulate those details, right? So for example, right, one of my first experiences coaching, not at Bangtao, but another place, but I said, basically, if one person makes a mistake, sure, that's on them. But then when I noticed the whole room was making a mistake, that's a me problem, right? That's something that I forgot to mention to them. So I've had very few of those moments now as I've matured as a coach. But really, that's the biggest thing. And in a gym this big, making sure that my voice is loud enough. In the beginning, it wasn't like that, but then I think as I got more and more used to running class and teaching class, it's almost like I could push more air out of my lungs, and my voice eventually got louder.
You've just recently got your own class, right? The fundamentals wrestling class.
Yeah.
What's that class like? What would be the overview of that if you were to sell it?
So that's been really cool. And part of the reason is I've tried to make it fit well or benefit all levels, right? So whether you're a complete beginner and it's your first day in wrestling, or if you're already a seasoned professional MMA fighter, jiu-jitsu black belt, whatever, you'll still get something from showing up to the class that benefits your progression right where you are. So that's been something I'm really proud of being able to achieve, right? And so the other thing too is that we do have people who stay here long term, but we've also got tourists who are only here for 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. And so each class has to work extremely well as a standalone class. So if that's the only class they take, they'll still benefit from it. But I still have designed it in a way where if you hang around for long enough, you get a whole curriculum too. So in about 12, 13, 14 weeks of taking that class, the promise is that you learn just about as much as I did in what took me about 3 years to figure out along the grappling journey. Probably not seeing my dreams come to fruition, the Olympic dreams especially. But if we're going more granular, more about the process, I struggled a lot, like for probably most, but not the tail end of my career with performance anxiety. Like back when I was still competing in high school in my earlier days, they didn't really have that much information on mental performance. And so what frustrated me a lot back then was you'd get coaches that just said, you either have it or you don't, right? And in reality, it's like, if you don't have it, that competitive ability to really perform once you know the lights are on, once you're on the big stage, it is something that you can develop, it's something you can acquire. But back then, a lot of coaches just didn't know how to prep somebody for that. And so I really didn't do well with my performance up until I took my mental performance really seriously, and then I got a coach. So I didn't even know coaches existed like for that until much later on in my career. But I'm glad I eventually figured that out before I retired from competition. Important qualities for a grappler. So one thing that really sticks out to mind, mental performance-wise, is that if they get too fixated on the result, they hold on to that like too strong, that's mismanaged resources, right? So in the moment, You have to really focus on that one action that you've got to do right here, right now. And people kind of miss that sometimes, right? Especially if they're overthinking. So if they enter a match and they're like, I want this so bad, but they're fixated on the result, on the gold medal, on the championship, on the UFC belt or whatever, that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. Simply because you can want all those stuff on a daily basis in the process, but when it's finally time to be in the moment, if you focus too much from that, it actually takes away from your focus and your decision making in the actual fight or match or whatever itself. And I found that the people who can really, really dial into that focus onto what they have to do next in that moment, they really, really thrive, under that pressure. And so figuring that out for most people, right? Like being able to compete is a skill. And so developing the skill to compete, it takes some time, takes some work. Just starting their grappling career. Keeping an open mind, focusing as much as you can on each session, right? It's in the beginning, it might be about the number of sessions that you put in. So attendance is good, but then once you really, really start to develop, right? Just because you spend an hour on the mats doesn't mean that you are fully there for an hour, right? So if you're 15 minutes in and next thing you know, your mind is drifting, you're thinking about lunch, right? You're thinking about work stress or whatever. It takes your body, it takes your mind out of that moment. And now you're learning the techniques slower because you're not reinforcing that pathway as much as you could if you were in a more focused state, right? And so that matters a lot. And you will find that the more focused you are, the more tuned in you are to, one, what they're teaching, but what your body is doing in that moment. That's where you really, really see a lot of strides, a lot of growth in your progress as a martial artist, as a grappler, as a fighter. So to develop as a fighter, right? It's the variety of training partners that helps a lot of people.
Here at Bangtao?
At Bangtao, yes. And one big thing that people often overlook, we do have some fantastic instructors here, but we do get people who come in from overseas who are good enough to be instructors, to be head coaches at their own gyms. And so oftentimes they show up in the form of training partners as students in the class, right? And so it's not just the 2 or 3 instructors that are physically there running the class, coaching the class, but you can actually have really good quality feedback from some of the most brilliant minds in the game that are not actually teaching the class itself, right? And so you can think about it less as a coach giving direct feedback, but also as a think tank where really smart people come together and put their ideas together and give feedback. That's where you really get the most out of a gym like this. It's great. I've seen people with some great attitudes, right? Where I'm not sure I had that kind of awareness of the process, that level of maturity when I was that young. So seeing them grow, right? Seeing them implement the stuff that we teach, very gratifying. And in a lot of these fighters' instances, I really see it. The sky's the limit. It gives me a lot of excitement to show up on a regular basis, to really see how far they can take their potential. It's a really exciting time to be at Bangtao. Here especially, it's being able to give something so meaningful to other people, but still doing it with a smile on your face, right? Like Frank and George are really good examples where we're running class, but there's still good banter. Right? I tell people all the time, especially new customers to Bangtao, right? It's like, you come for the training, but really you stay for the banter, right? It's the relationships that you build here that makes it such a cool place to be, to train. And I felt that on the student side of things too. When I first came out here to Phuket, I used to really embrace the grind, but I didn't really enjoy it as much as I do now, right? Where in the beginning it was just, all right, let's just push through this session. I'm not enjoying it, but I'm here because I have to be here in order to reach a goal. That's fine on some days, but you'll really get more out of your training where it's like, I'm here, I want to be here. I enjoy the shit out of working hard now, and it's great, right? Like that's the most perfect environment you can have to really grow as a competitor, martial artist, person, anything, right? To basically be able to kick ass with a smile on your face. Right, and that's really what the boys do a good job at teaching. Follow Bangtao on YouTube, hit that like, subscribe, and share button. Give us some love. Find me on Instagram. I love talking to you guys too.